Chris Wells, you're going to be coming to Rowe on the weekend of October 18th for Forging a New Path. You describe it as a play shop. What's the difference between a play shop and a workshop, and why is play important for forging a new path?
A play shop is different from a workshop. I mean, very simply, I think of workshop as I lead a lot of workshops, mostly writing workshops, and they're very intense. There is fun, but the participant is asked to go deep in a kind of intense way. And I think that a play shop, to me, just feels more playful. It feels like we might be running around in the woods. We'll probably be exploring different materials. I'm planning a series of exercises that will include, there will be some writing, but there will be exercises and experiences that involve paper and cutting and drawing. So I think materially it will be different. And I think the spirit of exploration will be a little looser and freer because we're talking about imagining the future. And since that is unknown, we'll be exploring that in a fun, playful, interactive way.
Chris, when you talk about this experience being interactive and playful, how would someone know that they might be smelling the scent that you're laying down, that this idea of forging a new path is a good idea for them? What would sorts of things might be happening in their lives or in this time that make them think, yeah, maybe this is the thing?
That's a good question. I was thinking about this because I knew we were going to be talking, and I thought the best place I can speak from is from personal experience. I find myself at a period in life where I've done many, many things, and I've had a lot of exciting experiences and successes. And I also find myself in a place of questioning, well, I've done all that. I know I want to remain engaged in my life. I'm not at a point where I want to retire or give up or stop. And I want to imagine the future in a way that is intentional, involves some level of excitement, that I'm looking at my own life and my past, and I'm putting those things together, but also thinking about what are the things that I haven't done yet, and what are the qualities that are in me that maybe haven't been fully expressed. So I'm approaching the play shop from those perspectives as somebody who is very curious about what this next phase of life is going to be like for me, and that I want to make exciting, creative choices about how I move forward. So I hope that it's attractive to people who are in a similar place, even if they may look different than me, or they might be younger than me, or older than me, or our experiences might be vastly different, but that there's a similar sort of creative curiosity based on inquiry and self-examination. So I hope that those things appeal to a broad range of people.
Thank you. Would you say that so many people think about what they want for their future and think about the impediments they've run into? What is it about a creative approach, a sideways approach, an oblique approach that makes it seem like that's a different way, and maybe not a better way, but maybe an important way to explore these impediments or these blockades or these precipices of change?
I think there are two things. One is that creative thinking and creative problem solving, for my money, is the most exciting and fruitful way to approach a challenge. There's that. The other is that many people, I'm not saying that everybody who comes to this will be in this category, but many people deprive themselves of living more creative lives out of concern for practicalities, whether that's the need to make a certain amount of money, or they're raising children, or whatever the conditions of their life may have been. Many people find themselves putting aside those sort of youthful dreams about, I want to live this kind of life. I want to either make art, or I want to do something creative. many people drop those things pretty early on. And I think that some people get to a certain point in their life where they're, quote, comfortable, or they're coming to an end of the thing they committed to. And there's a desire to have those things back, to sort of claim what is, I think of as everyone's birthright, which is creativity, art making, play. So it's both the methodology that we will use that I hope will spark in people a reminder that you can think of things differently, that you don't have to know the answers to move forward, that you can take risks. All of these things are fundamental to art making of all kinds, right? I say repeatedly to the writers I work with, you know, a lot of the reason people stop writing or think they can't write is because they don't know what they want to say, or they don't know how it's going to go. When it's precisely the opposite approach that is what makes writing so thrilling and valuable, which is to sit down and wonder and then just start writing. So I think that art making will be a helpful sort of reawakening for people. And I also think reconnecting certain people to those creative impulses that they may have put on hold could be very exciting for everybody.
When people decide that they're going to show up for this, the people who are going to be there with them will be strangers to them. You have a big background in theater as well. What is are some of the energies that come together with strangers that allow for open-heartedness and discovery
Hmm.
and play, as opposed to showing up with a whole bunch of people who you know?
Uh-huh. Well, yes, as you know, Matthew, I've been building and leading communities of varying kinds for many, many years. This might seem like a dry response, but I'll expound on it, and I have other things to say. But the first thing I would say are clear boundaries. Clear boundaries are the best way to make people feel comfortable and that they can participate fully, that they can be present and feel safe to be vulnerable, that they can reveal parts of themselves without somebody either interrupting them or telling them what they should do or think or giving them advice or crosstalk. So I'm a big believer in not having a rigid approach, but having a clear structure that I lead people through, and through modeling, and as well as gentle side coaching or side directing, reminding people that we are all here in a way that we want to focus on ourselves. We want to be respectful of each other. We want to listen deeply. Deeply listening is one of the greatest ways to provide an experience for others. I just was at Omega again I think this was my fifth or sixth year. I always get confused about that because of the pandemic. But I have a group of, this year I had 21 people. Nobody knows each other. Everybody has varying life experiences, various desires and dreams and ambitions. And within 5 days, my job is to get them all to a point of discovery and meaningful, a deeper understanding of their work and themselves, and also to feel connected, to find opportunities to connect to other people in the room. And I'll say that there, and also with the various writing groups that I lead and through my work with the Secret City, there's a kind of sideways, you used this word a few minutes ago, but a sideways thing that can happen. I'm not brokering relationships, but the nature of the container is such that somebody sitting next to this person feels safe to turn and make a connection, and then they're sitting next to each other at dinner, and they leave the weekend with a feeling of, oh, I actually took part in a community this weekend, not just that I explored my work or myself, but that I saw myself in other people and I felt connected to other people. And all that incredible juicy cross learning can happen when we see someone else having a really great experience, or we hear them articulate something that maybe we were thinking but we hadn't quite said. Um so that's how I approach leading a play shop such as this is create a strong container, lead people to listen deeply, and ask people to open up, and but also remind people that they're in a place where it is safe to be, and also not putting people on the spot. A lot of times if somebody wants to say, I pass, that's totally fine, whatever the situation might be.
Thank you for that. Also, in the description, you wrote, "Is your sense of the future now a little frightening or overwhelming?" Also, in theater, having a little bit of nerves can sometimes be a good thing. So, not that everyone should come in frightened or a little bit nervous about where they are in their lives or to come in, but if you are a little bit nervous, how do you see the connection between forging a new path and having a little bit of nerves, bravery, a little bit of fear?
I had an acting teacher years ago. The one thing I remember him saying that I've carried throughout my professional life in theater and then beyond is your nerves are your talent. And I think when someone comes to a workshop or comes to work with me and they have, I'm not saying I want people to be terrified, but a level of discomfort, a level of, I'm nervous or I'm afraid, but I'm here anyway. That is such a beautiful place for someone to be, to learn. And not just to learn, but to have an experience that is going to crack them open. So, I mean, I'm somebody who gets incredibly nervous and excited or anxious when I have to perform. Not when I teach and not when I lead certain community events, but as an actor, I had terrible nerves. And the other thing that I think is related to this, and I've been saying this a lot lately to people I work with, is this idea of doubt. And so many people, myself included, but especially creative people, have this sense of self-doubt. And it can be something that teeters, right? It's like, oh, if the self-doubt moves into self-hatred or it moves into, I don't know how to do anything, this was a stupid idea, not so good. But if it's, I'm not sure, this is new, I'm going to try something I've never done before, I might fail, that can be an incredibly exciting and valuable place to come from. So, particular to this experience, if people are feeling trepidation or nerves or even doubt that this is something they can do, not to minimize people's feelings, but I think those are a great indication of possibility and somebody who's going to be alive in the room. One of the hardest things is when you have people who aren't engaged or feel blasé or don't have any stakes in the experience. It's the person who is vibrating on some level of, like, as I said, not terror, but some level of like, oh my God, what's going to happen? That is an exciting place to be.
You talked in the write-up for this weekend, uncovering lost ambitions. What is it about reclaiming these lost ambitions that's important for the times that you think we're in, as opposed to just for ourselves and our self-improvement? A lot of people who maybe come to Rowe are interested in community mindedness, and are wondering about the times that we're in. Why might finding these lost ambitions, well, how that might be valuable for not just my own self-improvement?
It's such a fundamental question. As somebody who's dedicated his whole life to art making and art leadership and community building through the arts, I sometimes am such a passionate believer in it that I forget I have to articulate it repeatedly, which is that it is crucial that people find ways to be creative. It is crucial that we support the arts. It's crucial that we look at the world through a creative, curious lens. Art making, all of those things do that. And in terms of uncovering lost ambitions, and we can think of it in many ways, but in this moment in particular, I'm thinking, how do we remind ourselves that some of the things we wanted maybe weren't profitable or practical, and so we may have put them aside. But I do think there's a call to awakening right now, which is finding ways to be more empathetic, finding ways to make connections more, to not be so isolated in our own experience, but to be experiencing everybody else and everybody else's experience. And that doesn't mean to be a doormat or not to have to be so permeable that we can't kind of make it through life. This is a little corny, but I just saw this quote by Audrey Hepburn online, and she said, the most important thing in the world is to be open to someone else's experience, more than riches, more than ambition, more than accomplishment. If we cannot care about other people's experiences, we are doomed as a species. I'm terribly paraphrasing, but I do believe that sort of reawakening these maybe ambitions that are less about the marketplace and ambitions that are less about sort of achievement and more about, oh, the kind of person I would like to be, or the kind of daily life I would like to have, the way I want to engage with the world. So when I say ambitions, it isn't so much, it might be, somebody's ambition might be like, oh, I always wanted to be in the movies. So I'm going to get myself an agent and I'm going to move to Hollywood. I'm going to start auditioning, which is great. But the nature of the ambition isn't so important as the kind of, I guess, the purity of purpose, and that purpose isn't about steamrolling anyone or anything, but that it does have a natural way of connecting people to each other.
Beautiful. You also wrote about promoting movement in the heart. What's your understanding of speaking from the heart and the importance of it?
It's interesting. I think that when I wrote that, once again, a lot of what I'm drawing from in building this experience is where I am in my own life, right? What I think is going to help me, or the things I want to adjust as I move into the next phase of my life. And I have found that sometimes it's hard for me to be fully truthful or fully authentic or fully myself with others. And that's usually based on old roles, ways of behaving that I think are about like, oh, I need to fit in, or I need to be a good boy, or and I think this awakening that is available to all of us is, I not to sound histrionic, but when I die, I would like to feel like the fullest expression of myself as possible. And I was able to tell the people I love that I love them, that I was able to apologize to the people I love for things that I might have done and never took responsibility for, that I was able to be as fully myself as possible. And I think that part of this new path that I'm interested in forging and leading other people to forge for themselves has a lot to do with accessing that authentic self, right? Because those things, it's all combined. Like, I would want the next phase of my life to not be about falsehoods, but to be about the truth insofar as I can experience it.
What is it about Rowe that made it seem like a good idea for you to show up since you've known about it for so long?
Like many people, I have deep feelings about the idea of camp. I went to camp. I have fundamental memories and experiences from my childhood of being at camp, leaving home, being somewhere in nature with a group of strangers, being led through various experiences. And when I first came to know about Rowe, this camp idea really attracted me. And certainly the mission of, you know, what I guess feels to me like progressive exploration, right? People who are interested in exploring ideas and exploring the human experience. I love that part of the world very much. I've lived in the Hudson Valley for many years, and I love driving across the river and visiting that part of Massachusetts. And I think the possibility of having a really extraordinary experience in that setting, and the fact that it's small. I love teaching at Omega, but that campus is very large and there are hundreds and hundreds of people there. I'm excited to see what happens when we kind of condense and concentrate that experience with a group of like-minded people. Forging a New Path, October 18th through October 20th. We would love to have you there.
I'm super excited to have you there. Thank you so much, Chris.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Thanks
yeah.
for having me, Matthew.
Total pleasure.